We shouldn't underestimate the giving power of younger generations.
Welcome to Social Situation, a podcast where we chat with and celebrate leaders challenging the status quo and creating innovations in social impact. Join us for conversations around the current and future state of social impact, the value of closing the gap between for-profits and nonprofits, and the importance of taking values-informed risks in order to create the greatest impact.
I'm Trevor Loke.
And I'm Erin Mogel.
And this is Social Situation.
Welcome to Social Situation, episode 7. In this episode, we'll be talking about corporate community investment, and we'll be joined by Nina Rauch, Global Head of Social Impact at Lemonade. Before we jump in, I have a question for you, Trevor. As you know, I am such a fan of your entrepreneurship journey. It's so inspiring to me as I continue to grow my business. And I just love hearing about the growth and evolution of Orgmatch. And so I'm wondering, as a startup, how have you leveraged social impact to help your business grow?
Thank you, Erin. Orgmatch has always been a social impact company. It's always been inherent to who we are and what we do. A huge part of that is just that's the space I come from, having been in fundraising and grant making for 15 years. It's just how we show up to the space. But how we're implementing it in our company is in a few different ways. I mean, we have our charitable partners that we work with, and we do return profits to the charities that we work with to try to lift them up, give them unrestricted operating support. That's a huge part of what we believe in. And obviously, the more our company grows, the more we want to keep doing that and giving back. But we also really, I'm a very big believer in supporting this space for professionals because it's a rapidly growing space and because there are so many best practices and things that we can share and learn from each other. So this podcast is, one way that we're helping to support that as well, by being able to sponsor this, by bringing people on like Nina today, who are going to be able to shed some light on for the thousands of people in other companies who are trying to figure out, do we need to refine our strategy? Do we need a new strategy? Do we need to rethink how we're forming partnerships altogether? So I'm really excited to be able to work with companies that have been able to do that. And, I'm obviously on the more startup side, we have a lot of flexibility and leanness, which, some bigger companies I know don't have the luxury of. They've got to be really, really consistent with their brands and their promise and how they're communicating. And I got a little bit of insight of that from previous work I did as a consultant with Patagonia. But Erin, I know that that's more, you've had experience working with a big public company in a similar role. I know that you've also worked with, different leaders in different companies across the space in your business. So you've really seen it from both sides too. And I'm curious about how you've seen social impacts help both those really big households, kitchen table name companies, and also companies like yours.
Thanks, Trevor. Yeah, that's a great question. So I started my business after working, like you said, at a major corporation, a major financial services company with over 80,000 employees worldwide. And now I'm a team of one. So definitely a large difference there. And there were so many takeaways from, that prior experience that I have. I think one is, where does social impact fit in, right? When you think of large corporations, social impact is, hopefully a very important component of the work that they do. And hopefully it's very tied to the mission and brand. But at the end of the day, it all really pushes back on, the overarching goals of the company. And so, we're always kind of thinking about, where does social impact fall? And usually the folks on that team are working across many different departments. It's a very kind of interdisciplinary role in that you're serving employees, you're serving consumers, you're serving stakeholders. There's a lot of reporting that goes into it, and a lot of fitting social impact into kind of the mold or the model of a pre-existing company. Whereas with Elevate Social Impact, it's been really interesting to start my company from the ground up with an ethos of social impact really built in. And when I say built in, I mean that is entirely what we are focused on. So it's been really interesting to kind of take from what I learned at my prior company to see, the impact that social impact can have on your work, but really make my whole company entirely focused on doing good, helping other companies and other individuals to commit to community involvement, to building relationships with different nonprofits, to bettering the experience for their employees by providing volunteer and charitable giving opportunities, by helping individuals that want to work in the social impact sector to navigate the landscape and find opportunities in the space. And so, I really learned how to build a mission statement and a model that is focused on social impact. But at the same time, you and I are both running businesses as well. So there's that revenue component that always plays in. And, it's tricky, right? Because we want to, of course, be able to run longstanding businesses that are successful, that are contributing, that are making a difference. But also keeping that social impact component top of mind so that we can ensure we're running businesses that are truly, pushing the needle and making the kind of difference that we hope to see in communities around us. So definitely something I'm kind of constantly thinking about and gleaning, from my old experiences, what I can kind of bring into this one. But it's great to hear about Orgmatch as well, and kind of how you all are, navigating impact and how that's helping your business to grow and differentiate yourselves from other similar businesses.
Well, thanks, Erin. And the takeaway there that I'm getting is no matter where your business is at, there's a social impact component that you can incorporate that's going to help your business to grow. I've really noticed this as I look at our own, branding and marketing as a company, and I think like, oh, wow, okay, here's where I see us communicating what our values are, and then the social impact is the action behind the words. I see it. And so I think as more and more companies are realizing that in order to build trust, we need to see action behind words. Social impact becomes a great way to demonstrate what that action looks like. We had an episode recently on artificial intelligence, and we talked about how AI is, really becoming part of a lot of different businesses and companies because, when we think about artificial intelligence, it's really, data that is better trained and ultimately more hygienic or more reliable at the end of the day. And so every company will want to be have some incorporation of artificial intelligence into their business. And I see the exact same with this social impact space. It's not a matter of whether your company has social impact or not. It's how are you putting the action to the words of your marketing? So when you're talking about the values and how you show up in the world, who are you working with to demonstrate that? And companies are either going to do it or they're not. One example I used to go back to the company I worked with before, Patagonia, and is that the same year that they were making record profits and making record community investments, the same year that JCPenney went bankrupt. Companies in obviously with very different strategies and approaches, but JCPenney was, blowing money on television advertising and traditional marketing means that were words ultimately, and Patagonia was putting action behind what they were doing and spending less money. And so to me, that is just a case study for the future of where companies are going.
That's great, Trevor. I think your emphasis on values is really important for everyone to kind of hear and let that soak in, right? Because it's all about, really walking the walk. Any company can put a statement on their website, can, show some photos of a volunteer day and say that they're fully committed. But looking at the companies that are truly doing it and living and breathing their values and, ensuring that those values are understood, appreciated, really kind of held closely by employees, by stakeholders, by consumers, by really anyone touching the business is so important. And that will shine through. And like you said, that will create the greatest impact. So it's really about how do we get companies to a place where they feel they are, truly aligned with the values that they're putting out there. And hopefully that's, from the ground up. But making sure that businesses are staying true to those values and staying true to the impact goals that they have, and that, like we talk about a lot on this podcast, we might need to take risks in order to create the greatest impact. We might need to be shouting something from the rooftop when other businesses are afraid to do so. But, at the end of the day, those are probably the companies that are making the greatest impact and making the most lasting impact. So certainly a lot to learn from them. And, it's a process for sure, but really appreciate those insights, Trevor. That's great. And that example as well. All right, let's take a short break and we will be right back. Looking to make an impact, but not sure where to start? Elevate Social Impact, a purpose-driven consulting and coaching practice, helps companies develop their CSR strategies and embed a culture of giving back into their brand. And they guide individuals looking for fulfilling careers in social impact. Whether you're wanting to grow your company's give back efforts or find values alignment and make a greater difference through your work, Elevate Social Impact is excited to equip you with the knowledge, resources, and tools that you need to get started. Check out elevatesocialimpact.com today to learn more.
Welcome to Social Situation. We are honored to have Nina Rauch joining us today. Nina is the head of social impact at Lemonade, a consumer insurance company that gives profits back to nonprofit organizations. In fact, Nina established Lemonade as a purpose-driven brand, leading its Give Back program, B Corp certification, and the company's sustainability efforts, including building Lemonade's ESG strategy from scratch. Nina is also an incredible changemaker in the breast cancer space, having founded the social enterprise Pink Week, where she raised £500,000 for breast cancer charities in honor of her late mother. We're so excited to have Nina here with us today. Welcome, Nina.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. That was such a kind introduction. I wasn't expecting that.
Well, we're so thrilled to have you, Nina. And I know that we've been LinkedIn friends for a while now, and I'm super grateful that you're joining us on Social Situation. So before we jump in, I'd love to hear when and how your passion for social impact started. Has this always been a core thread throughout your life?
I think that I've always had a core thread of wanting to give back to the community. I started my social enterprise nonprofit Pink Week when I was 16 after I lost my mother. But I don't think I necessarily knew or had heard of social impact as a term when I first entered the professional sector. I think it only really happened when I started to explore options outside of the nonprofit world. So I think social impact was always something I was aiming towards and, gearing up to, but it's not necessarily a direction I thought I would ever reach.
I love that. It sounds like it's been something that's innate to you and something that, there's been that passion for, and it's really cool, just following your journey to see the evolution of that over the years. And I know we're going to dive more into that today. So thank you so much again for being here.
And just to follow up on Erin's question, you established a social impact program from scratch at Lemonade. I imagine you drew a lot on your history to be able to do this, especially at a global company. So this is a very unique experience that I know a lot of our listeners would be curious about, especially those working in, more established community investment programs who maybe want to reimagine what theirs could be like. So just curious, coming into the role, how did you have a sense of how to solve this challenge? And maybe we'll start there and I'll follow up.
Yeah, of course. I think what was interesting about Lemonade and what stood out for me is when I started to look for opportunities in the for-profit sector, I wanted to join a company that already had a social impact mission built into the product. So I wanted to make sure that any company I became a part of, social impact was something they were already thinking about. Lemonade has this incredible program called the Give Back, which is where we donate a percentage of unclaimed premiums at the end of the insurance year directly to nonprofits and charities that our customers have chosen. So while they already had this give back program from before they'd even sold their first policy, that's really where the social impact stopped. So they had this monetary donations and these nonprofit partnerships, but nothing beyond that. So when I joined, the first thing we wanted to do is just see how we could expand that impact beyond the give back, because when you've got a really strong core, it's a great foundation, but social impact is such a broad term. And I think what's great about starting a program from scratch is that you get to think about everything that is encompassed by this term. So yes, we had the nonprofit partnerships, but how does that expand into volunteering and employee branding? You want to make sure that your impact externally is reflected internally. And then does sustainability start to fall under social impact, which at Lemonade it does. So I really think it was a great opportunity to grow something that was already there. And when I speak to people who are looking for jobs in the for-profit sector and want to have this experience of building out a social impact, strategy and career, I say primarily make sure you look for a company that already has that mission central to what it's doing, because then, your options are endless.
Yeah, fantastic. I love that, and how you talked about, really building on the foundation of what was already at the company as a starting point. That makes a lot of sense. So, let's fast forward a little bit. The program's in place, it's been running. What have you been learning about it that, you didn't know when you started it?
Yeah, so much. I mean, like one of the main things I've learned, I think, is to re-strategize how we work with our nonprofits, because initially Lemonade was partnering with so many different organizations and it was focused on local impact, which we still hold very dear and is something that we still prioritize. But we've tried to work with larger nonprofits as well as smaller nonprofits. So you get this kind of diversity. And actually, as the company's grown, I've been able to understand what's important to our customer, which when you're a small company, you don't really know. But now I can see, okay, so customers really love environmental causes. Whenever we start working with an environmental charity, they're one of the most popular to be chosen. And then I can tap into that and expand our social impact accordingly. So it's been a real guiding light for me to, as the company has grown, just constantly reevaluate our nonprofit partnerships. Do they still reflect our brand? Do they still align with our brand? Do they still align with our customer base? And also now our employee base. So I think that's been the biggest learning curve for me, is knowing the right organizations to partner with, figuring out the ones that are highest impact and the ones that align most clearly with our brand.
I really appreciate your focus on reevaluation, right? I think it's easy for a company to choose any random nonprofit and, say they're giving back, say employees are out there volunteering, but you and the Lemonade team are doing that hard work and that due diligence to constantly reevaluate, to constantly, research, to constantly speak to employees, consumers, look at the needs of the community, of course, reflect back appropriately on your mission and brand and your overall, company goals, and to make sure that these nonprofit partnerships are the right fit and that they're serving all of your stakeholders in the right ways. So definitely appreciate that reminder. I think that's a great reminder to our audience, for anyone who's listening who might be starting their own social impact programming, that it's not we build the program and just watch it run, but it's a constant, effort, and a lot of due diligence has to go into it, throughout. And yeah, definitely appreciate your thoughtfulness around those partnerships.
Kind of building on what you said about reevaluation, I think the reason we take it so seriously is because, you're dealing with a customer relationship and you need to know that they can trust you when it comes to social impact, because you have so many companies nowadays that are saying they're doing good and they're, utilizing that to maximize customer relationship and grow their customer base, but actually they might not be doing what they say. So I feel that responsibility really heavily. And I think that's why I'm always making sure that I'm reevaluating our partners and making sure that they actually do reflect the needs of the customer. So I think reevaluation is really important for social impact, especially as companies grow.
Absolutely. And it sounds like you all are very transparent in the work that you're doing as well with, again, consumers, employees, other stakeholders. And I think that's a huge piece of it too, that you're really walking the walk and, doing, having those hard conversations if need be, doing the difficult reevaluation to ensure that you are maximizing impact. So thank you for all the good you're doing. And I want to switch gears a little bit now, because I know that you were instrumental in taking Lemonade from a startup to a publicly traded company, which is so incredibly impressive. And I'd love to hear about that process. So were there any surprises along the way or any unforeseen challenges? And if you could share, a little bit about, what might be different now versus then, that'd be great to hear as well.
I actually think it builds perfectly on your previous question of reevaluation, because when you become a public company, you have legislation to answer to. You have to take what you're saying really, really seriously. And I think that was one of the greatest challenges, is suddenly it went from wanting to be a sustainable company to, if we're saying we're a sustainable company, can we also fill in our climate disclosure properly? We're culpable to climate laws, and especially expanding in the EU and the UK. So that was one of the greatest challenges. I'd always tried to make sure as much as I could that we were doing everything correctly. But when you're a public company, it's no longer a question of trying. You just have to be. You have to make sure everything is in order. So I think that was one of the biggest challenges. And I would say another challenge as you grow from startup to public company is continuing this argument, which is something I really advocate for, and I think Lemonade as a brand really advocates for. But that business, doing good is good for business. And how can you keep proving that, that sustainability, social impact is actually a key part of profitability, on the path to profitability and on the path to growth. And I think Lemonade is a testament to that. We were the second ever public benefit corporation to go public. But I think it's still a tension that a lot of companies experience, which is how can we grow and focus on going public, on profitability, when we have this social impact scheme and we're donating money? Can those two really go hand in hand? So it's a challenge that I'm continually dealing with, and making sure to prove that, like I said, doing good is good for business. And I think it's a challenge that lots of people experience at a growing company.
Oh, thank you for that. I really appreciate the insights there. And, you're now truly a global company, public, global, and your partnerships reflect that. You have some really incredible global partnerships. One thing that I hear from community investment teams is it's really hard to balance telling, big, broad stories with local impact, and I'm wondering how you can, balance that, or how you demonstrate the impact you're talking about at a global level.
That's such a good question. And it's something that we were just talking about last week, about how do you balance this idea of impact being really personal and connected to the customer when your brand grows. One of the coolest things we do is we actually invite our policyholders to go visit their charity and to see their impact firsthand. So we've had policyholders go to the opening of Ali Forney, which is the first trans safe home that we funded in NYC. We recently had a policyholder spend time in Disneyland with the charity Foster Love, supporting foster kids on a day out. So I think that's a really great way to connect customer and brand. And of course, we make sure to share that on social and to always have like a constant conversation happening between our customers. They're always writing in about nonprofits they're excited about. We're always making sure that communication is open. I try and speak about our social impact as much as I can. Every podcast I can do, just trying to get our narrative out there. So, I think trying to focus on that personal connection, which Lemonade really has, because the customer chooses the nonprofit. So from the second they become part of the company, they have a personal connection with that charity because they chose it. So we always update them as well with the impact that charity is making. So I never try to never lose sight of that personal connection, and think of Lemonade just as the middleman that's orchestrating these donations and the impact, but focusing on the relationship between customer and nonprofit.
Just a quick follow-up from that, and circling back a little bit to the evaluation standpoint, you talked about, the importance of reevaluation, the importance of these connections. So when you're, choosing new partnerships or onboarding a new charity partner, what are some of the things you are considering before you're bringing them into the fold?
Yeah, I mean, one of the primary things we obviously look at is making sure that they have all their requirements in order. That's probably the first thing I see. I think we have our legal team look at every documentation twice, and we also review them every 6 months. Org structure, is the money going to the right place? Can I prove where every single dollar is going? And once we know that that's all in order, we really look at brand alignment. So we love to work with charities that are, focused on tech innovation, because obviously that's something that we hold very closely. We love global organizations because we want to reflect the global nature of our work. So are these charities far-reaching in the same way that our product is far-reaching? We also have a strong emphasis on environmentally friendly products. We launched car insurance, the first environmentally friendly car insurance. So our drivers actually plant trees as they drive. And so we often look for charities that have that same environmental core. So yeah, I would say, brand alignment, and then making sure that it's on pulse with the employees as well, because you want your employee to feel proud of the company they work for. And a huge part of feeling proud is the nonprofit partnerships that we have. And social impact, going back to the idea of social impact being good for business, it's great for employee retention and attracting talent. So I think people sometimes lose sight of that piece when they think about social impact, but I try and keep it really central to what we do. And that feeds into how we choose our partners as well.
I really appreciate you sharing that last piece there, because absolutely, I feel like especially amongst millennials and Gen Z, now more than ever, those individuals are looking to work for companies that have social good strategies, that are committed to making the world a better place, that are thoughtful about the nonprofit partnerships that they have. And so definitely I can see how your incredible social impact programs help to attract and retain talent. But I also love the piece you were sharing about policyholders having a stake in the impact that you all are having. Like, how cool to be a policyholder and then get to visit a nonprofit doing incredible work that you already have a relationship with. What an incredible benefit. And it just shows that you're not just dedicated to your employees, or just dedicated to your consumers, or just dedicated to the stakeholders, or, like you said, now that you're, a publicly traded company, not just dedicated to ensuring you check all the boxes of, the requirements there, but you're equally focused on kind of everyone that makes up the Lemonade family, if you will. So, and I can see your passion. So it's really great to hear kind of how you think about the strategy, and how things, of course, are constantly evolving. And speaking of passion, I kind of want to switch gears a little bit and talk more about Pink Week. I know that unfortunately you lost your mother to breast cancer, as we mentioned earlier on. I unfortunately lost a parent to cancer as well. And I really appreciate how you've taken your experience of grief and heartache, and you've done something so amazingly impactful and so beautiful to support so many people. First of all, I'm sure your mom would be so proud of you and all that you've done. And I'd love to hear, a little bit more about Pink Week. If you could share with our audience, how you got this started, and also you started it at 16. That's incredible. So impressive. Could you tell us a little bit more?
Thank you so much. And I'm so sorry to hear about your loss as well. It really is something that impacts so many people. And I think it's crucial that we're spreading awareness and we keep talking about it. So yeah, I really appreciate your kind words. I started Pink Week when I was 16. I grew up in a household. My mother was a breast cancer activist. She was a journalist. She was very vocal about her experiences. So breast cancer wasn't something that, was taboo or wasn't spoken about. But at the same time, my reality at home was very different from my reality at school or at university. I went to an all-girls school, and I was never spoken to about breast cancer. And even though breast cancer traditionally is found in older generations and older women, firstly, the rates are coming down much younger, but also one of the primary, ways to prevent breast cancer is to check. And the earlier you're aware of checking, the better the chances of catching it early. So something didn't make sense in my head. If we want to be aware and we know that we need to be checking preventatively, why are we not being educated about this from a very young age, so that it just becomes the norm? So when I was 16 and I realized we still hadn't been spoken to about breast cancer, and it wasn't part of the conversation, and I was at as I said, an all-girls school, so a great place to have this conversation, I decided to start Pink Week, and I just started by spreading awareness. I started with a week of events. Everybody wore pink. They donated to breast cancer charities. And little by little, via micro donations, the money just started to build up. And I saw that people really were excited about having something to give back to, and that Gen Z and my peers and millennials, or younger generations who traditionally are not targeted at all by nonprofits because they're not the high earners, suddenly felt really good about having something to be involved in and to give back to. So I took it with me to university, and that's when it really spiraled. It spread throughout the UK. We ended up raising, over $500,000 and continuing to raise funds. And I think it just really showed me that we shouldn't underestimate the giving power of younger generations if you find something to tap into that they care about. And we're seeing that now, right, with Gen Z. We know that they make decisions based on social causes, whether it's to choose a job or to buy from a brand or to consume, that's very driven by social justice. So, tapping into that early is a real advantage. And yeah, I feel to this day super proud of Pink Week. And I think we all have it in us, to turn a difficult moment in our life into something really positive and to build community around it. I mean, Pink Week was only successful because of the community of people that built it. It wasn't me alone. I was surrounded by friends who brought it to their universities and spread the message. And I think, like we've spoken about community as an integral part of impact. So I think that was my first understanding of the power of community, and it's something I hold very dear.
Thank you so much for sharing. Your story really inspires me, and I know it will inspire our audience. And I think just remembering that you don't need to be the wealthiest person, you don't need to be the most connected person, you don't need to have a long-standing career in nonprofit or social impact in order to make a difference. If you're passionate about a cause, if it's something you care so deeply about, and you gather your community, you can have an incredible impact. And I think just the amount of money you've raised and the awareness that you've raised is a testament to that. So thank you so much. If anyone wants to learn more or get involved in Pink Week, what's the best way for them to do so?
Just head to the website or to the Instagram. There's still, constant fundraising efforts. So it's always a place for people to donate to. And I always direct people towards Pink Week. It's also now part with Breast Cancer Now, which is the largest UK breast cancer awareness charity. So you can also head there and support that organization.
Fantastic. I really appreciate, diving into your story a little bit. And I would love to hear how, this personal journey and story that you've had that was for so long separate from Lemonade, how it shows up now in your work at Lemonade and how it relates to the story that Lemonade is trying to tell.
Definitely. I mean, the first way that it shows up is that we actually work with a breast cancer charity at Lemonade. And the fact that I'm able to still give back to the breast cancer community, we funded mammograms last year. We've supported thousands of breast cancer patients throughout their treatment, is something that I feel incredibly grateful for, because I thought that when I moved out of the nonprofit sector, I moved away from the breast cancer research sector. I didn't think I would end up working for an insurance company and still be donating to breast cancer. Like, that's a full circle moment that I didn't even think was possible. So I feel incredibly grateful that it shows up in that, very direct way. And then in the more indirect way, I think, every time we talk about a charity, or I talk about a charity, whether it's internally to our employees or externally, I always have people reach out and say, hi, I'm a Lemonade customer. I'm experiencing something that this charity is actually supporting. Or hi, I'm a Lemonade employee and I'm experiencing something that this charity is working towards. And it really reminds me that the thing that's so beautiful about charity is that it's personal. It helps real people, and working with all these different organizations, having these touch points with customers and employees reminds me of that same thing that I felt with Pink Week every single day, which is that this is actually impacting real people's lives. So I think it really shows up for me in that way.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I think it all comes back to people, right? I mean, in the work we're doing, I think it also relates to, the fundraising and the grant making are not all that different in that sense, that it does come down to personal relationships. And yeah, I really appreciate you mentioning that.
I want to take a step back and kind of talk a little bit about, first of all, the incredible, business that you work for, and the fact that I know you said it was the second ever public benefit corporation and B Corp to go public, which is just amazing. Such a great feat. And I know a lot of our listeners may have heard those terms before, or maybe considering acquiring those statuses for their own businesses. And I'm curious if you can share with us a little bit more about the process of becoming a public benefit corporation, becoming a B Corp, and the impact that it's had on Lemonade as a global social impact company.
Definitely. Becoming a B Corp is something I talk about a lot. It's a really, really difficult process. I think the difficulty is a testament to how legitimate it is. It's one of the best third-party certificates you can get to verify your social impact, but it's hard to do. It takes a lot of work, a lot of data aggregation, the first time we certified as a B Corp was before Lemonade had launched. So you're thinking, you're talking about around 6 employees. And if you think that now we're recertifying as a company that's over 1,500 employees, different offices, different entities, multiple product lines, the amount that you need to dive into every aspect of the company's business, supply chain, policy is just a completely different beast. So the main advice I would give when applying for B Corp is really be prepared. Make sure that you have all your data in order, because it's something that you don't think about until you receive the certificate and realize how much auditing you really need to do. And also focus on high impact points. So the thing with B Corp is there's an assessment that has around 140 questions, and each question is worth different points. So I try and focus on things that I know as a company we can really bring up to our best. And obviously, we're always going to have gaps and we're always working to improve those. But how can we focus our improvement to make sure that, we're actually making a real difference to the company structure? So for us, for example, one thing that we knew that we could take on and we could tackle was the sustainability element. We knew that we could improve that. We could invest in carbon reduction. We could build environmentally friendly products. We have our climate donations already in place because of the give back. So how do we strengthen that sustainability arm whilst also, focusing on the other things that B Corp asks for? So yeah, it's definitely a difficult process. We've actually just recertified for the 3rd time. Took us over a year to complete. On the one hand, yes, it's hard. On the other hand, I think it's one of the best stamps you can get to prove your business's impact. When I was looking for jobs in the for-profit sector, I was looking for companies that had that B Corp stamp. Also for people listening who are looking for jobs, it's a really good way to tell a good company from other companies. But I really was looking for a company that already had that B Corp stamp because it's a certificate that I trust. So I highly recommend it for most business. Like if a business is able to, I really recommend trying to get the B Corp certificate as early on as possible.
That's great. Congratulations, 3rd time around. It sounds like a lot of work. I know from speaking with other colleagues in the space that it does take a lot of time and effort, but kudos to you all and, prioritizing this. It just, again, reflects back on your mission and brand and your values. That it is something you easily could choose not to have that certification. And the fact that you do, it just really sets Lemonade apart from others. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, and I'm interestingly enough looking at the B Corp certification for our business, and it's an extremely robust process, which is a good thing. But definitely requires as you say, having your ducks in a row before sinking your teeth into it. So thanks for going over that. I want to shift gears a little bit, change channels really, because I understand that when you take your cape off at night, one of the ways you relax is by watching Real Housewives, which I can completely relate to. And so a couple of questions here. Number one, is there a favorite franchise? And more seriously, can you just talk about the importance of taking time outside of work to recharge your batteries?
Yes, and yes. Favorite franchise is 100% Beverly Hills. Salt Lake comes in strong second, but I love The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. I watch it on repeat. It just really relaxes me. Nothing like seeing people scream at each other to help you wind down. And in all seriousness, I think it's so important, especially in the social impact sector, where your work can really spill out of work hours, because being in the humanitarian sector, I mean, especially, in today's world, everything you're working on is constantly in the news. So it's really hard to make that separation. You're working with a nonprofit and you're seeing their work being showcased in the news and you're thinking about it constantly. And the world is always changing. So how do you respond to it? Something might happen one day to the next, and you feel constantly this responsibility of, okay, do we need to make a statement? Do we need to add a new nonprofit? Do we need to redirect our monetary donations to meet this new need that we're seeing emerging? So I think it's really, really important to give yourself time to relax, to take a break, to wind down after work. And it's something I need to get better at, but Housewives definitely helps me get there.
I love that. I have to say, I have not seen a ton of Housewives, but now I have plans for tonight. So thank you both. I will report back.
If you
And
have any questions,
okay,
you know where to come.
definitely. I appreciate that. Thank you. So Nina, this has been such an incredible conversation. I feel like we could keep chatting all day. But before we go, I had one last question for you, kind of a big one. When you think about, you know, your career and all that you've accomplished, you've already done so much, and I know you'll continue to make such a great impact. I'd love to hear what type of legacy you hope to leave. When people think about you, let's say 80 years from now, who will they think of? Or who do you hope they'll think of?
I hope they'll think that I was kind. I think that's my primary feeling when you ask me that question. But in terms of legacy professionally, I really strongly, like I said, advocate for the idea of for-profit businesses acting as this bridge for the non-profit sector and not being the traditional for-profit that we used to see, but actually a new and better model that can mirror philanthropic models almost. And I want that to keep growing throughout the for-profit sector, the for-profit industry. I want more companies to be thinking about social impact from the very beginning, not as an afterthought, not once they've reached a certain amount of money, once they've, expanded their customer base and suddenly they think, oh, actually, social impact would be a good look for us. I want it to be something that's really part of the company from the very beginning. So if my legacy could be that doing good is good for business, I think I would feel very happy.
Well, thank you, Nina. That's really, really insightful, and I think an incredible legacy that, yes, we certainly hope that is the legacy you leave, because I think our planet needs it, frankly. Thank you for taking the time for us today. That brings us to the end of our conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. Nina Rauch is the global head of social impact at Lemonade. Please consider checking out her website, Nina Z or Nina Z Rauch.com. Last name spelled RAUCH.com to learn more about Nina's work, connect with her on LinkedIn, and check out the amazing work of Lemonade at lemonade.com. Thank you for listening, everyone. We'll be right back. $60 billion is being given by companies to nonprofits in 2024 to maximize regulatory benefits and manage reputation for employees and customers. Some companies are struggling. The rest are using Orgmatch because Orgmatch optimizes this process, saving time and money required in due diligence, research, and administration, while increasing confidence in the impact and investment earned. That's why community investment teams around the world are trusting Orgmatch to get the job done. Find out for yourself by going to orgmatch.com. That's ORGMATCH.com to get started now for free. Welcome back. It's time for us to share what's on our mind. Erin, what is on your mind today?
Thanks, Trevor. So I just love that conversation with Nina. I think she's doing amazing work, and just hearing her entrepreneurship journey, hearing about her amazing work in the breast cancer space was really inspiring to me, and just really invigorating, and just great to hear about Lemonade's commitment to impact and how they have prioritized impact in all aspects of their business. And it really got me thinking about how we empower consumers to be philanthropic. I really want to kind of double click on what Nina was saying about that, because I think they have such a unique model at Lemonade where they allow, anyone purchasing one of their kind of insurance policies to kind of get involved in the philanthropic efforts of the company and kind of decide where funding is going. I know she mentioned there were some opportunities for their policyholders to really get out there into the community on behalf of, or in connection with Lemonade, and really kind of see communities at work that they're supporting and get involved in different kind of volunteer and community activities. And it makes me think about how times have changed. Growing up, I don't remember hearing about, this kind of consumer powered philanthropy that we're hearing about now. And I definitely think it's an exciting time to be in. I think especially as we're seeing, I know we talk about this a lot, younger generations, Gen Z, millennials are, looking to support companies that also have kind of a give back or do good section of their work. If there are two equal companies, but one is involved philanthropically, that's the one that those that kind of market, those Gen Z millennial consumers will kind of align with. And I think it's really exciting because it allows us kind of to look inside under the hood of a company, to feel an alliance with the company, to feel proud of the companies that we are shopping from, that we are benefiting from, and to feel really secure in our purchases and kind of where we are giving our time, where we're giving our money, our resources, and to understand the values of companies or businesses that we are aligning with. And so I think it's, a great benefit that Lemonade offers. I definitely would love to see more of this. And we are seeing more, just in terms of companies that, allow you to be part of their philanthropic activities, that either share what employees are doing in the community and maybe have an opportunity for consumers to, donate to a shared cause. Maybe it is an opportunity to volunteer for the same organization that the corporation is aligned with. Maybe it's an opportunity to allocate some funding towards a nonprofit that the company has a relationship with, what have you. There's many different models of this, but I definitely think it's exciting to give consumers the power in this sort of philanthropic decision making that historically was more kind of, just up to the company itself. And so I think it definitely, for companies, it probably can feel, like a bit of unknown territory, maybe a bit risky, but I definitely think there's so much benefit in it. And we've seen that from consumers that are just thrilled at the opportunity to engage with companies, community engagement or social impact programming and strategies. So definitely excited to see more of that. And I really commend Lemonade for taking the lead on those sort of opportunities and for kind of setting a new standard for what consumer-led philanthropy can look like. So Trevor, I'd love to hear though what's on your mind today.
Thanks, Erin. I really want to build on what you were talking about around how to structure your social impact within a business, because I think it can look a lot of different ways, and it doesn't have to be a centralized model. You can have a model where, yes, your customers are helping decide where the money is going, just like Lemonade does. There's also ways of having, your customers give back. There are ways of having local stores work with their local customers to make decisions around which charities to support or who to partner with, or how to create volunteer engagement. So whether you have a centralized or decentralized model, I think it really depends on the type of business you have. And in terms of what's on my mind, coming back full circle, thinking about Nina and community investment teams, around the world. And one of the struggles I'm hearing from, senior managers and decision makers in companies is that they're looking for more ways to keep their employees engaged in social impact causes that are meaningful. And there's a couple of examples I have of companies that I've been working with lately who have been using more digital tools to help facilitate conversations on the type of social impact that companies want to have. One tool from Google is called Calling Our Corals, where teams can, go on either as individuals or together and listen to the sounds of different parts of oceans around the world to understand the health of coral reef systems in that particular area. And all of that goes back to inform scientists and policymakers to figure out, where areas of conservation need to be protected, where policies need to be changed to help ensure ocean health. So that's one example. Another is missing maps, where organizations can go on where there are current areas of disaster or crisis, and they can look at where Google Maps doesn't currently have road systems and evacuation routes mapped out. And your teams can actually add those to Google Maps in real time so that people in those areas can figure out, how am I going to get out of this area, or, what's my best way of going from point A to point B in an area that Google hasn't been able to do on its own. So those are just a couple of examples of online digital team building exercises that I've seen companies use to, create meaning and facilitate conversations on the type of social impact they want to have. There are dozens of examples of these out there. I would certainly encourage folks to Google some different ones or share other examples that we don't know about, so that teams can really, figure out how they want to engage with this type of work. I think, making an impact doesn't have to be a process in overthinking. It can just be as simple as coming together for 30 minutes over a coffee while you are on a Zoom call together doing an activity. Like, that could be a social impact exercise that builds morale, builds loyalty, makes a great story, gives you energy back. There's so many reasons why companies can take on these practices, but that's what's on my mind today, Erin.
Thanks for sharing, Trevor. I love those ideas. And actually, when I was at Morgan Stanley, I helped to manage our employee engagement activity, so our employee volunteering, and a lot of that was during COVID. So a lot of it was kind of virtual. And what you shared really resonated. We actually took part in a mapping exercise ourselves, and our employees loved the opportunity to help put maps, or put roads, I should say, on the map, especially in areas where there had been humanitarian crises, or other sort of crises as a result of war or political strife. It was a really empowering exercise. It was a really important exercise so that emergency personnel could reach those communities and further support the folks that live there, but also a really fun activity to do as a team and to see the progress that, just a few people can have together in, helping to create these maps that have never existed before. A couple other ideas are, card writing. This is a volunteer activity that has existed for years and years, but can also be done virtually. So many communities can benefit from hearing, just some kind words from employees of companies, whether it's sending cards to a nursing home, to military individuals, to, children that might not otherwise receive birthday cards or holiday cards. So definitely a lot of potential impact can be made there. And so definitely, like you said, Trevor, I recommend that everybody research these sort of opportunities that exist or that you can help develop. If you go to your CSR teams at your companies, I am sure they have plenty of team building exercises, opportunities that can be done both virtually and together in person. Of course, there's so much, you can do out in the community. If you work for a company that doesn't yet have a CSR team established, certainly we are here to support on that, but also, like Trevor said, Googling these sort of opportunities, they're not often too challenging to implement. And there are a lot of nonprofits that can help facilitate these sort of projects and could really, their communities could really benefit from your time. And then at the same time, your teams can really benefit from that sort of a team building exercise that brings people together, helps to create bonds, and just gives everyone the opportunity to work together on a project that is not your typical day-to-day work project. So definitely kind of a win-win all around, I would say.
Absolutely a win-win. Come together, have fun, make an impact. Couldn't think of anything better. That brings us to the end of our episode. Social Situation is co-hosted by me, Trevor Loke, Erin Mogel, and presented by Elevate Social Impact and Orgmatch. Editing is by Tristan Thomson. New episodes are released on the second Thursday of each month. Visit socialsituationpodcast.com to learn more or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.